Okay, welcome back to Stories from the River. I'm here with Stacey McCormick, our Senior Vice President of Retail Performance. We are in the midst of our World Business Forum New York City recap series, and we're here today to talk about Peter Diamandis, one of the biggest exponential thinkers, I think, who's out there. It's interesting. I first got introduced to Peter Diamandis at World Business Forum 8 or 9 years ago in 2014 or 2015, and it was mind-blowing then. I think at that point it was like robotics taking over the world, and so we, Todd Wanick and Ashley has brought in Peter to speak on several accounts to us, and now we're here. He's really talking about AI and his 60s of exponentialism. So Stacey, welcome to the pod.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
What do you think of Peter?
I was kind of blown away. As a matter of fact, I kind of would compare it to when I was growing up. I would see all these things about, electric cars or things of the future that all of a sudden, back then they didn't seem possible, and now all of a sudden we're doing it, right? Mm-hmm. And so some of that's a little scary, to be honest with you. But it's definitely forward thinking. He is definitely forward thinking.
He is that. His 6Ds exponential framework, which are digitalization, dematerialization, demonetization, democratization, disruption, and deception, I think is what I've got here. I'm just looking at this, or deception and then disruption. Yeah. And so he goes through each of those 6Ds, the law of Kurzweil's law of accelerating returns. He had this quote: "The day before something is a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. We will see as much progress in the next decade as we've seen in the past century." And, he said, why is AI's been around for 67 years? Why is it blowing up now? He gave 4 reasons. Number 1, computational power is where it is today. Number 2, global data is doubling, and labeled data that large language models use. And LLMs are a reflection of humanity now. And then he said the efficiency of the models. And then he said 4, just the massive investments being made in the space, which, to me, AI reminds me of like the internet investments in the mid to late 90s. It's really hot sector. He said AI is going to be greater than electricity or fire, which is pretty. I mean, like, if you think about that, so he's a big thinker.
I just read a article that Todd Wanick was quoted in Furniture Today, and he said the same thing. He said AI is going to be to us in the current state what the fire was to cavemen.
That's right. Well, Todd follows Peter.
Yeah,
he goes to Solidarity University. Peter said, you should be playing with ChatGPT. So if you haven't downloaded ChatGPT, download it, be tinkering with it. He said, one question to ask AI that I took away was, ask it, how would our competitors crush us? And see what it says. And he said, be curious. He also said, you got to hire a chief AI officer. So I don't know about that, but he said, AI it will impact leadership development. It can impact your contact center, scheduling, forecasting, auditing, cybersecurity, replenishment, order management, accounts payable. Of course, maybe that's just what I wrote. It can infuse into every single area of where we're trying to change our business. So anyways, what were some of your key takeaways from Peter?
It's really to embrace it. I mean, the thing of it is, I think, it is a real thing, and it's here. And by the way, in the last 2 minutes since we started talking, it just got smarter. And so at a rate that we've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And the biggest takeaway probably was in the model that he showed where, that first computer or the first start of a computer was 1937 at Dartmouth University. And then obviously it took to get us here, the 70 plus years or 80 plus years. And now by the end of this year, we will have traveled as far down this path or by the end of next year, we'll have traveled as far down this path as we have in the last 70 or 80 years.
Yeah. Well, he's big on giving all these big meta trends.
Yeah.
And so I think, sometimes we're all in our day to day and we're in the here and now, we're doing our jobs. And I appreciate someone who is going not just 10,000 feet up, but a million feet up and looking down and trying to look forwards, backwards, and project. So like the increasing abundance of energy, the increasing abundance of food. So he's got an optimistic view of where the world's going based off of these meta trends. Because a lot of people might say, oh, we're going to run out of food. He goes, no, it's going to be more abundant. And he'll always point to, well, look how far we've come and how we've solved it. And he'll point to like technologies and things that are doubling or improving or increasing, say, here's how we're going to solve these problems in the future. I really appreciate that. I mean, it's can be both scary but optimistic. But he said, you can't ignore it. There's going to be massive investments in the space. You if you're in business and you're of the culture in the water today, you ought to be figuring out what's going on, or it's just going to pass you. So he's trying to like wake people up and let people realize like this is moving fast. This is changing, and you ought to be paying attention to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the advancements. Some of the things you do get excited about, and I think I heard you say this, but the advancements in health and longevity and things of that nature, but. I'm with you. I don't know if I want to live to be 120. I mean, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm not sure, right? And am I? What am I going to do if I'm that old? But then the other side of it is, hey, isn't it really cool that they have all of these technologies nowadays that they're really doing a lot of work around and work with to say we can cure cancer, we can cure these things, and early screening of cancer. The body scans that they can do nowadays that can detect cancer in its earliest of stages because what he said, most of the time, by the time you catch it with today's reactive medicine instead of proactive medicine, you might could have caught it early enough to stem the tide and either cure it or at least prolong your life.
Well, I mean, there's so much we can say on that because I want to touch on the one living to be 120, but he talked about genome sequencing and editing your genome, and he talked about what CRISPR's doing, and you can edit your DNA. And he said, what if you had a backup set of organs? So I don't know if I want to live to be 120, not if I'm the only one there and everyone else is like 90 or younger, like. It depends on
exactly.
Am I being kept alive by 3D printed fake organs all over my body? We'll just 3D print a new arm or a new limb or a new knee. But I guess he's trying to get you comfortable with where technology is going and to think longer term and to be, I do think the phrase that he said about fountain life, with this diagnostic revolution, like, look, I'm wearing a fitness tracker, right? So I've got more health stats than I would have had 40 years ago or 5 years ago. But he said, be the CEO of your health, of your own health.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good phrase.
Absolutely.
That's a good health. And you can be proactive. And if you could stop cancer from spreading or detect it early, would you want to? Well, yeah, you probably would, or some certain diseases. So I think that's what he's like talking about with where technology is going. Now, some of this stuff, I'm not comfortable with, but it's like, all the lab-grown meats they talked about, or 3D printing combines, fat and muscle cells to produce lab-grown artificial steak. And we'll give you the link to the slide deck. I don't think he'll mind for the Metatrends presentation. But I don't know if I want to eat lab-grown, artificial produced steak. But that's what he wants you to get comfortable with.
I want to have the choice.
Yeah. Well, it may not be such a radical idea to our kids or to their kids.
Oh, absolutely.
When there's an abundance of food and they're just printing off their food, or they're just coming up with DNA to have backup organs.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
It's a crazy
I did
world.
find it very interesting that they're created these farms in these warehouses where, they can grow acres, thousands and thousands of acres of food. What would take thousands of acres to grow inside of a 200,000 square foot warehouse, and that to me is very amazing. And that's world hunger type stuff. I think that's powerful. And I think that does a lot of good.
And what does that do for people if there is no hunger, if there's no limitations of access to like clean water? So the next meta trend was communications and sensors. Everything is connected everywhere, always.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Well, that's Stacey, you're not gonna be able to stop this meta trend.
I'm not a fan.
There's we probably need good guardrails.
I think that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's other, the next meta trend, which you talked a lot about, was the growth of AI. He said, it's like I said earlier, it's 67 years old. Why now? He gave us 4 reasons: computation doubling, the global data doubling. The cost to train AI systems has gone down 99.5% in the last 5 years. And then capital. Just so, if capital is being poured into something, it's going to advance that area.
Yeah.
He said the global AI market size will be $1.6 trillion by 2030. That's huge.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a big number. In the quote we said about electricity or fire, he took Alphabet, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, who said artificial intelligence could have more profound implications for humanity than electricity or fire. And Elon Musk said companies have to race to build AI or they will be made uncompetitive. Essentially, if your competitor is racing to build AI, they will crush you. So his thoughts are there will be 2 kinds, and I've heard Peter say this, there will be 2 kinds of companies at the end of the decade: those who are fully utilizing AI and those who are out of business. Okay, that's a sobering thought. That means you can't ignore it if you want to stay into business. ChatGPT broke the internet. It was the fastest growth ever to 1 million users. And he compared that to Netflix, Kickstarter, Airbnb, Twitter, Foursquare, Facebook, Dropbox, Spotify. ChatGPT took 5 days. Netflix took 3.5 years to get to 1 million users. ChatGPT, 5 days. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
Ray Kurzweil said, 2029 is the date I predicted when AI will achieve human levels of intelligence. Stacey, that's only 5 years from now.
Exactly.
And then Elon Musk says in 2028, AI will be vastly smarter than any human and would overtake us. That's a little bit sobering thought. So
yeah, that's the part that you kind of, my small brain might not be able to, comprehend, is like what happens if that happens, and I guess we'll see, but those are the things I think that's the unknown that you have a little bit of fear or a little bit of concern about. However, I think what you've said all along and what a lot of people have said, and I've said it too, guardrails. Like, what are our guardrails?
Yeah.
How are we going to protect ourselves while enhancing getting all of the benefits and the good out of it, right?
Well, I mean, you may use ChatGPT to pass the bar exam because it's passed the bar exam now. You may use it to pass your medical licensing test, or to pass the Wharton MBA final exam because it's doing all that today.
Exactly.
Today.
Exactly.
So we just read where SI, Sports Illustrated, got in trouble because a lot of their articles were written by AI, and they said, well, it was a third party who said it was, real people. And so what's the source of truth?
How do we know?
What's authentic? Merriam-Webster just said the 2023 word of the year is authentic. So I think people are wanting to know what is authentic, what's artificial.
Well, I think it's one of the things that I think you and I have spoke about this before, but for me, it's do we depend on it? Like, there's kids in this world today that can't look at a clock and tell time, unless there's numbers there, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't remember phone numbers anymore. We don't remember addresses anymore. Everything is in our phone or on our computer. And so did that open up more space for us to have creativity and use our brains for other things? Or is it creating a lackadaisical lethargy or laziness around our own education because we've got a machine here that can tell us everything we need to know? Well, I look at that. I see that saying, okay, I want to continue. Sometimes I like to plan and work on things and try to figure them out. Do I use this as a tool to help me do that? Or do I just totally outsource my thought?
I think that those are very good reflective questions that we have to ponder, and how we want it to use us, not be used by it, right? Or how we want to use it, not be used by it.
That's it.
But maybe it'll raise people's standards too in some regards, because it said ChatGPT outperforms doctors in giving empathetic advice.
Yeah,
well,
crazy.
Maybe doctors need to be more empathetic.
Absolutely.
Don't let AI be more. It said ChatGPT's responses were 4 times more likely to be ranked good and 10 times more likely to be ranked to be empathetic than real doctors. I mean, so it said that AI, but here's the good. AI model can now detect dementia using speech patterns. It can currently diagnose Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia with 70 to 75% accuracy. Well, I can see where that can be good, right? Based off the, and so what can you do to kind of proactively prevent that or treat that before it becomes an issue? So there are, so there's a lot with AI. It can overwhelm you. It can create anxiety but to ignore it and just hope it goes away.
No, I think we've got to understand it for sure. I mean, again, I think the question you just asked a while ago, I think if you don't go figure out a way to understand it, then it will start to use you. Or you will be left behind because other people are using it. So I think it's hey, that's why I got signed up really quick months ago. Carl told me you better go do it today. What are you waiting on? And I've been right there ever since. So
the other meta trends he talked about were robotics again.
Yes.
And then he talked about autonomous transport and eVTOL.
The flying car.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Hey, look, as long as they can get the technology, to where they won't crash all the time, I guess it's all good, especially if it's affordable. I think that was the other thing I found interesting is that he felt like all of these things would cause a lot of things in the world because people ask questions like, well, okay, what about work? What about this? What about that? What about, all of these things that you're talking about, they're not going to be attainable for everyone in society. And he said that basically because of the technology and the way that it's going to be manufactured at this really, really low price, that it would be demonetized to some degree. Like he even said that electricity would be demonetized. And I don't know that I trust that statement. I would have to see it to believe it because, obviously there are people that have a lot of money that are proliferating this stuff and doing the investing, right, and putting the capital behind it.
Yeah, and
they usually don't do that unless they can make money.
Well, that's right. That's right. Well, I mean, I might be excited about flying cars.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That'd be cool. I mean, I can see the positives of that as long as they don't go crazy. And we talked about the meta trend of longevity and health span. He said, he asked his questions: how long might we live? He said human beings 100 years. He said, but there's bowhead whales that live 200 years and Greenland sharks that live 500 years. So why the difference? Is it our hardware or the software? And so he's trying to solve well, how can we live? He said, we are on the verge of a health span revolution. He gave 4 reasons. Number 1, capital. It's tons of money going into the space. Number 2, exponential technology, artificial technology, quantum technologies. Number 3, the biotech revolution. And we talked about the genome sequencing. And then, various vaccines that are coming out now and heart gene-edited transplants. And number 4, the diagnostic revolution that we talked about. So, I don't know how long I want to live. That may be future generations who are pondering the 200-year, to live as long as the bowhead whales or the 500 years of the Greenland sharks and getting their backup organs. I was born in a time when you don't live that long. So I got some programming that's got me conditioned. But he did say we're living in one of the most extraordinary times. He wants us to expand our ways of thinking. I appreciate that. I think he went to medical school. So he's taken his medical background to apply it to health, longevity, technology. And that's a big thinker. Like we need big thinkers to advance the world and use it for good. And he referenced Mo Godot, who said he wrote a book on how we raise our AIs. And he talked about but Peter believes in a post-capital society. So, I mean, he's not going to be right on everything. But, he I guess he doesn't believe in death. And he said death is the business model of religion and government. So that may be where we might, kind of separate, and I don't know that we're supposed to live forever in this world, but maybe that's just my faith and religious beliefs. That being said, Stacey, he's a big thinker and technology is going to change the world. And these are things and meta trends that are coming. And so I think it's important to pay attention to it. I think AI is critically important to pay attention to it. We should determine what type of life we want to live, what that life looks like. I think if we are planning to live longer, and let's say we are going to live to 120 and they'll figure that out, or the average moves up, I think it gives us a longer time to kind of enjoy life. Maybe you're not in such a rush to put so much pressure or anxiety to missed some of the things in your 20s or 30s, maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit longer runway. I think Shane Parrish, who wrote Clear Thinking and founder of Farnham Street, he talks a lot about that in terms of like, he's going to take his time a little bit and because he's going to stick around for a long time. So I think we can be productive for a longer period of time. We can plan on that. Probably got to have good habits. Like I know you probably got up early this morning, you went to the gym. Yeah. And so, we got to have good habits and just plan to stick around for a long time and protect our mind, protect our bodies, and maybe stick around and we'll see how the world changes. But like, I applaud you for downloading ChatGPT and saying, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be a dinosaur. I'm going to continue to learn.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
I got to stay relevant somehow.
Yeah.
So, the thing that I would, and that's what I would encourage everybody to do. Like the link to this deck is in the show notes. Like go watch it, go review it, go look at everything and go do some research, go get on ChatGPT and just understand it, because I think it is the future. And if you're either going to embrace the future or you're going to get left behind by it. You'll be in the history. And I got to tell you, I would encourage everyone. And the other thing I would tell you is through understanding, you can understand how it would impact you or what can happen for you in it. So I just think it's super important that everybody embraces that it's here, that these trends are coming, and that you have knowledge about it so that you can make the best decisions for yourself.
And we should think about what type of world we want to live in that incorporates AI and make sure that we're voting on the elected leaders who support that position. And voting for those folks who, because this is policy making, this is governance.
Oh yeah.
And maybe it's not for us, but it's for our children and for their children. And let's don't leave it untethered without the right guardrails, right thinking about what's right for humanity, what's right for life, and let's do it responsibly and sustainably. So, but let's not ignore it. To your point,
that's it.
So that'll wake you up a little bit. He'll get you thinking. So we'll put the link to the show notes, like Stacey said. I think, Stacey, that's a wrap on this episode of Peter Diamandis.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for joining me.
All
right, thanks guys. Check us out next time. We'll bring you fresh new content from Stories from the River. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.